This week's episode is dedicated to our Explorer of the Week, Jonathan Perna. Jonathan, you are an absolute superstar. Thank you so much to you and to all our Patreons for helping to support this podcast. Now, you too can be an Explorer of the Week simply by going to patreon.com/aliens explored and picking a tier at Explorer of the Week or above that suits you. I mean, we have all sorts of tiers out there, so go on and have a look and see how you can support podcasts like ours, just like Jonathan Perna has, our Explorer of the Week. Aliens Explored is a podcast exploring famous and obscure cases of UFO sightings, alien abductions and other strange events from both a believing and a sceptical perspective whilst keeping an open mind. I'm Stu Jackson, a professional actor and amateur ufologist with a particular interest in the crop circle phenomenon. I'll be debating that otherworldly visitations are real. The truth is out there.
And I'm Neil Kelly. I'm a professional actor as well and used to work for the military as an intelligence analyst. I'll be arguing from a more doubtful point of view. I mean, it's all a bit far-fetched, isn't it?
Edward J Ruppelt is perhaps most famously known for being the head of Project Blue Book. But what caused Ruppelt's sudden change of heart from being open-minded about UFOs to seeing them as what he called a space-age myth? Join myself and Neil here on Aliens Explored as we discuss the life and work of Edward J Ruppelt.
Hello listeners and welcome back to Aliens Explored, your weekly look at the mysterious skies and the people involved with them, some of whom sometimes come to a sticky end. I'm one of your hosts, Neil Kelly.
And I'm hopefully not coming to a sticky end anytime soon. Your other host, Stu Jackson. Oh my goodness, that's quite an introduction. Who's coming to a sticky end?
Well, you never know. The people do, don't they? They have accidents. when they get too close to the truth, you know. Maybe we should cover a few more of those. I mean, it's only because today we are talking about someone who survived a major war against the odds, but yet still died very young.
Yes,
of a mundane kind of cause, or was it?
Oh, that's an interesting take, and we'll come on to that. But before we get into it, how are you doing, Neil?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Enjoying this. As we're recording this, it's the May Day bank holiday, so workers of all lands unite. And I've been doing a bit of gardening.
Excellent.
How about
I was going to
yourself?
ask if you'd done anything special. Yeah, no, I'm doing good. Had a fairly quiet weekend. Did some podcast editing earlier today. Obviously, Saturday we had a recording, did we not, of our Tales from the 20 side.
Yes, I was amazed that our characters survived.
I know.
Given the parlour state we'd left them in. Given how badly things were going.
Spoilers. Let's not, because some people do listen to both, you know.
Oh, well, yeah, we weren't throwing any spoilers, but... I've just spoiled it, haven't I? I just said the show doesn't end. I can say that much.
Well, I think also we can say your character survived. Not everyone did.
Yes, not everyone did. Well, James Bond. So is that a spoiler? Is it too soon to spoil?
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, mate.
No Time to Die.
I haven't seen it yet.
Which is a new way of looking at it, isn't it? You know, we always kind of mentally, the back of our minds know, oh yeah, he's James Bond. He's not.
I'm going to have to bleep this. You realise? Just saying. Yeah. You're making my life hell with the editing. Yeah. Also, you've just given me a big spoiler.
It's this isn't a spoiler. No Time to Die is free to watch on Amazon Prime in in the UK currently, as are pretty much, I think, just about every James Bond is now free to watch.
Is it?
Yeah, on
cool.
Amazon Prime. I don't know why they've suddenly done it. They've just suddenly released the entire catalogue, as presumably for a limited time only.
It will be, undoubtedly, and probably because the new movies come out to generate some sort of interest.
Well, no, there isn't. There isn't a new movie. Even they don't.
You just mentioned it. No Time to Die.
Yeah, but that's old, isn't it? That's one that was the release was delayed because of the pandemic. They had to, because James Bond is largely financed by product placement. They had to CGI in new versions of the cars and watches and things because the advertisers got in touch and said, "Well, that's our old product. We got a new one now." So they had to CGI in the new one,
right,
for its release in, was it end of 2021 or 22? It was a couple of years, wasn't it, that it was held back because of the pandemic. So, but they still don't know. I just saw a brief interview with not Cubby Broccoli, with his wife. Is it Hannah? Who said, "Well, not only have we not cast the new James Bond, we haven't even decided which direction we're going to take the franchise in. We haven't worked that out yet."
Right. But you say like 21, 22. We're in 22 now, so
yeah,
it can't be that old.
I saw it a few months ago, so it was either earlier this year.
There you go. It's not an old film.
But it was an old film. By the time it was between being finished and getting a cinematic release, it was a couple of years elapsed.
Anyway, we're not here to talk about James Bond, but we are here to talk about someone with just as much kind of secrecy and weird governmental things going on in a military background. Edward J Ruppelt.
Yes.
Now, it's a question I often ask, Neil, prior to us, because Edward J Ruppelt, their name in ufology, he's quite famous.
Yes.
Prior to us saying we were going to talk about him, had you heard of him?
Not before I don't think I'd heard of him before we'd done this podcast. But we have talked about Project Blue Book, which he ran for some time. I mean, in ufology, according to Wikipedia, Edward J Ruppelt is generally credited with coining the term unidentified flying object.
Yes,
to replace terms flying saucer, flying disc, because by that time I think they'd noticed different shapes. I think cigar-shaped objects have been seen in the skies.
Yeah. Well, the whole flying saucer thing wasn't to describe the shape of it. It was to describe the motion it made. Because if you chucked a saucer, like skipped it across a pond and the way it sort of jumps across, that was why the term flying saucer first came about, was the airline pilot, I think it was, or certainly airplane pilot, who used the term, was describing the motion it made, not the shape of it. But yeah, that's since been bastardized.
But yeah, when people talk about flying saucers, they do generally think of a circular cross.
Saucer shape, yeah, definitely. But that's a conflation.
Or two saucers, one on top of the other, face to face, to create that.
But you're absolutely right. Edward J Ruppelt is the man who coined the term UFO. Definitely. And of course, he's known for Project Blue Book. But of course, he headed up Project Grudge, which was the predecessor to Blue Book. So I think it was from 49 to 51.
Now, in the chronology of things, when these flying discs, flying saucers were first spotted and became a concern for the US military, for their air defences and their air force, originally it was Project Sign, wasn't it? And I believe that Project Sign very generally concluded that these phenomena that they were seeing were evidence of visitors from advanced civilizations on other worlds. And so that was quickly replaced by Project Grudge, whose brief was really to discredit that
yes.
sort of, to generally explain away all these things. And then that was when Edward J Ruppelt got involved. I think that was during the Korean War, was it during the Korean War?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, and then, yes, from late 1951. And then it became Project Blue Book in March 1952. And Edward J Ruppelt stayed with Blue Book until late 1953. So Ruppelt was generally regarded as an open-minded officer and a good administrator. That's why he was.
Before we get into that, though, it's worth talking about his career prior to then, because he started very early on. He was with the Air Corps originally, fought with World War II. I mean, at the age of 21, he was a bombardier who was very highly decorated. 21.
Well, he would have been 19 when he enlisted.
19 when he went in, but he came out in 21.
Yeah.
And yeah, he was very, very highly decorated. He then goes off, gets his Bachelor of Science in Aeronautical Engineering. So very, very smart guy.
Yeah.
And then he moves over to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base as an air technical intelligence operative. Wright-Patterson, of course, is where Project Grudge, Project Blue Book, Project Sign, they all operated from. Because it was mainly intelligence, wasn't it, Wright-Patterson, I believe?
Yes, well, I suppose all of the study of unidentified flying objects or aerial phenomena would come under intelligence, wouldn't it? It's about gathering information about them.
Exactly, yeah. And rightly so, whether it's to, I suppose, discredit it or to create a diversion or just to simply study these things open-mindedly, then, it all comes under intelligence.
So one thing I was wondering today as I was reminding myself about the life and works of the very short life and works of Edward J. Ruppelt, when a project like Project Grudge seeks to explain away UAPs, the unidentified flying phenomena, are they explaining it away as far as they're concerned? Are they saying, we don't want to know about it, we don't believe these things that exist, and any evidence that you present to us, we will find a way to just discredit or rubbish or whatever? Or are they saying, this is the stance we're taking towards the public? We are presenting to the public that actually we don't believe that these are visitors from other planets, other worlds, but secretly, privately, we are actually studying these things very, very intensely.
Oh, that is a brilliant question.
Really?
No, okay. It really, really is. Do you know what I mean? No, that's absolutely. I'll say like the completely the ideal sort of question that in the UFO community we need to be asking.
Absolutely, because it seems to be if you're in charge of Air Force intelligence and a craft appears in your airspace with performance capabilities that far outstrip anything that you've got, that not only could you not produce a craft that could maneuver at that speed, but you actually couldn't produce an environment where a pilot could survive being in a craft maneuvering at that speed, and to just try and find a way to just write it off, to basically put your hands over your ears and say, la, 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 I'm not listening, don't want to know, and we're just ignoring these things. We can't explain it, so we're ignoring it. That would be a mental thing to do if you were in intelligence. You should be very, very, unless you're absolutely sure you can explain this thing away, you should be very, very worried, shouldn't you?
I think a lot of it really depends strongly on the ultimate brief, and you absolutely hit the nail on the head when you said Project Grudge. The brief was discredit it, discredit. Now, whether I personally, I have a hard time to answer your question. I have a hard time believing the concept that they would just that they would dismiss it out of hand. Oh no, it must be rubbish, because you get so many credible witnesses coming forward who have seen things that can't be explained readily, that any intelligent person would look at it and say, well, there's something here. All right, it might not be like the idea of extraterrestrials might be like wildly out there, but there is something going on. And I think, this is what, from my observation, this is kind of what's happened with you, Neil, in doing this podcast. Is you've come into it, it's like, yeah, it's a load of nonsense. And now you think, well, there's something going on, but we can't explain what it is.
Yeah.
So any intelligent person is going to come at it. Now, I also think that some people might come into it as individuals and say, well, okay, I'm here to head up this investigation into the flying saucers, but, it's a load of nonsense. And interestingly, I think that might have happened with Ruppelt, where, he came in thinking it was utter nonsense, being told it was utter nonsense, and go out there with Project Grudge and prove that it's utter nonsense. But when it gets to Project Blue Book, he's changed his mind. He's become open-minded about it.
Well, I think he had more license to say, I don't know what this is. I've got no prosaic explanation for it. It's not an aircraft. It's not the moon. It's not clouds.
There was a radical change, it seems, in government policy between Project Grudge and Project Blue Book. Definitely, the approach was completely different. Now, I can't help but wonder, is it Ruppelt that drove that, though? Did he come into Project Grudge, start seeing all these reports and go, oh, hang on, we're here to discredit this, but there is something very strange going on, and we need to be more open-minded? Because, Project Blue Book was very open-minded.
It was, but maybe Project Grudge was as well. It's just that they weren't allowed to say that to the public. But by constantly saying to the public, oh, it was just an aircraft, oh, it was just stars, it was just whatever, that the public would start to disbelieve them and say, well, we can't believe anything the government says. Whatever you tell them, however compelling your evidence, they'll say, oh, it's a load of rubbish. It was just this, or it was just that. So I think by switching in terms of their public relations, by switching to a stance where they're more willing to say, well, actually, we don't know what it was. We've no explanation for it. They regain credibility in the public eye.
Do you know, if I was in charge of a government that even suspected there might be something unusual going on, but did not want the public to know about it, I would actually have two departments. I'd have one department out there publicly investigating and coming up with rational explanations for it all. And I'd have another department that was genuinely investigating them, but that would be secret and nobody would ever hear about it.
Yeah.
And I wonder if, like with Project Grudge, that's basically what it is. That was the public face of it.
But when the public face, it was just rubbished everything. And people say, well, no, wait a minute. No, that isn't. There's more to it. Then what you don't want to do is explain away so much that no one believes you anymore.
Exactly. But yeah, so I think perhaps Ruppelt was brought into Project Grudge as kind of an unwitting patsy, basically.
You think?
I don't know if I'm using that term correctly. It's not an English term, but basically, as the guy to front it, but
a decorated war hero.
Yeah,
everyone loves him. He's got his medals. Well, he's got life.
Exactly.
He's got all his limbs and faculties intact, which is no mean feat for somebody who flew bombers in World War II.
He's got his extensive qualifications in aeronautical engineering.
Yeah,
and don't want to diss that. That's like quite a big achievement. So yeah, he's a good face for dismissing it all. But I think he's got in there and realised, no, there is far more to it, and that's why Project Blue Book was so different. Because, and part of what drives me on that is kind of shortly after Project Blue Book starts, he starts wanting out. he asked to be relieved of it quite early on. So I think, he's trying to make it sort of more open-minded, more public. I think he's meeting pressure from behind the scenes, like, no, you can't, you've got to dismiss it all.
You've got
to find rational explanations. Yeah.
And he was perfectly prepared to say, I don't know what that was.
Exactly.
I've looked at the evidence, can't explain it.
So, and the fact that he then wanted out very quickly, I think he was meeting pressure from the other side. Now, there's another kind of darker side to this as well. Project Grudge, UFOs can't, there's rational explanations for them all. Project Blue Book, a couple of years later, no, we need to be open-minded about it all. Then later on in his life, after he's left that, and bear in mind, he would have been privy to some very sensitive information about UFOs with Project Blue Book. Later on in his life, he does a complete switch around again. And he is utterly dismissive of anything to do with UFOs.
Well, he published a book, didn't he? He wrote his own book, the Report on Unidentified Flying Objects, published in 1956, which was much praised by J. Allen Hynek. And he believed that Ruppelt was doing his best, but his efforts were being stymied by people on high. That Ruppelt was. Hynek wrote, "In my contacts with Ruppelt, I found him to be honest and seriously puzzled about the whole phenomenon." So I can imagine if he clashed with his superiors who were just saying, "Nope, you got to." But I'm sure that someone who's worked in the military, especially someone who's worked in intelligence, would know there's a big gulf between what you know and what you're going to let the public know. That's why we have military secrets. You can't just blurt out only military secrets. And if you believe that, potentially a terrestrial enemy has aircraft capabilities way beyond our own, they have aircraft that can intrude in our airspace with impunity and could attack any target anywhere in the United States and fly away again, and we wouldn't be able to do a thing about it because they're generations ahead of us in aircraft. Well, is that something you want to tell the public, or?
Well, no. That's it. And the fact so I can't get past the fact he's made this sudden turnaround from this honest, open person that Hynek describes to someone who is just completely dismissive of it, and even describes the whole UFO phenomenon as a space age myth, to directly quote.
Yeah.
And he completely changed his mind publicly. He completely changed his mind. Now, I'm a suspicious person at nature when it comes to UFOs and governments. We know this. I'm going to put forward a hypothesis that here was a guy, got his feet on the ground, sensible guy, war hero, comes out, has all the right credentials to be the person fronting this department to dismiss it all. So they stick him in there. He takes one look at it and goes, whoa, there's more to this than meets the eye. As this grounded person, this intelligent guy, he looks at it and says, there is more to it. The government doesn't like that, of course. I think by which time he's got all this knowledge, he's got privy information. He's privy to this information. I think he must have been hounded by the government for the rest of his life. No, you need to retract your open-mindedness. You need to,
we need a new version of your book.
Yeah, maybe even under threat.
Maybe.
And that comes back to something that you mentioned very early on. The guy died aged 37 in 1960. 37 years old, and he died of a heart attack.
A sudden death, sudden heart attack. Which you'd have thought, well, he'd have had medicals all his life, wouldn't he? You'd have thought. I mean, maybe in the 1940s, their way of looking at people's determining people's cardiac health wasn't as well. Obviously, wasn't as advanced as it is now. That maybe they did, send people into combat zones who had dicky tickers that could drop dead of a heart attack on the battlefield.
But you said yourself, he survived. We survived World War II against the odds. He's held, really responsible, quite stressful position. Now stress can build up and it can lead to these things. We know that. But age 37, even at a time in 1960, all right, people weren't living as long as they are today by any stretch. But 37 just seems like that's really suspicious.
Yeah, the average would have been lower. A lot of people would have died younger. People tended to retire from their jobs in heavy industry or coal mines and sit around coughing for a few years and then die before they got to 70. But to give you an idea of the carnage of World War II, my Auntie Marjorie, this from my own family, my Auntie Marjorie was working at the National Physical Laboratory in Teddington prior to World War II. And when war broke out, it turned out all the young men who worked there were in the RAF reserve. So they all went and signed up to their units. And before they left, they had this big group photos, these panoramic photos they take with about 100 people in there. So there's my Auntie Marjorie and her friend, these two young women in their early 20s, sat there in the middle, flanked on, to the sides and behind, three ranks of all these young men looking very, very dashing, about 100 of them, all looking very dashing in their RAF uniforms and their twirly moustaches and things. My Auntie Marjorie told me not one of them survived the war. Not a single one. Yeah. That was, Bomber Command was you were a suicide bomber. And that carnage continued until the very late stage of the war. So, yeah.
So as a bombardier...
flying in a lumbering, slow-moving bomber. Probably in the days before they had the Mustang P-51, that was an air superiority weapon craft that could accompany them all the way there and back.
Yeah. In the days before they had cloaking technology, like we talked about on a previous episode.
You go lumbering in over your target at a low speed, either in tight formation being shot at with artillery shells or broken up and being hunted down by fighters.
It really does make me question a lot of things.
And you would hope that someone who survived that against all the odds, that they would have lived to a ripe old age. Not just get killed in the next war. Or
you'd hope. I mean, stress can shorten your life, and it can shorten it quite dramatically, and I know that and I understand it, but it's just like 37 and a heart attack. What did he know?
It's a question. I mean, we've got no evidence to believe that, nothing to suggest that he was being seriously coerced or threatened. There's nothing.
No,
they've covered their tracks. Whoever did, they covered their tracks well.
A sudden, complete reversal of his stance on UFOs, followed by an unusually short life. Yeah, I say I'm suspicious, but anyway. So what do you think?
We know these things happen, don't we? We know they happen.
They do, and so Neil. I mean, do you think he was? Do you think he genuinely changed his mind then, or are you as suspicious as me?
Perhaps he did. People do change their minds. It is a sign of
they're allowed.
It's a sign of intelligence, isn't it, to be able to change your mind when presented with new evidence.
Well, he was out of that field completely. So, what new evidence would he have been presented with?
But not change your mind from deciding to keep an open mind about something you don't know to suddenly deciding, Oh yeah, well I don't know, but it's definitely not that. It's definitely.
I remember hearing a phrase that the mind is like a parachute. If it's not open, it's not going to work.
Yeah,
and I rather like that. I rather like that. But what do you think, listeners? Was Edward J Ruppelt the shill? That's the word I was looking for. Not
the shill. The
shill that I think he is, and I think Neil might be persuaded into as well. Or no? Was he just someone who kind of reflected on his life and thought, "Nah, do you know what? It was all a load of nonsense." Do let us know what you think. You can let us know via the usual means. You can email us, aliensexplored@gmail.com. You can reach us on Twitter. You can reach us on Facebook, both by searching Aliens Explored, or if you are one of our Patreons, you get exclusive access to our Discord server where you can chat with us, you can chat with other like-minded people about the episodes and about the whole UFO phenomenon. It gets quite engaging in there sometimes. To do so, you can go to patreon.com/Aliens Explored, and picking any of the tiers available gets you on the Discord server, but there are some other goodies as well that you can get your hands on. Right the way up to meeting us in person anywhere in the world.
Well, I'm just holding out for someone going to the level where they get a new T-shirt every 6 months, because these T-shirts are getting a bit worn, a bit threadbare, aren't they? We need new ones.
I feel I just want to make it clear at this point. The T-shirt level is not getting our used T-shirts.
No, but we need new ones too.
We would be especially.
We've got the designs all lined up. We just can't wait to print them.
Absolutely. So get on the Patreon and have a look at those rewards. Join us next time though, when Neil, I'm very excited for this one. We're going to be delving into the archives of the Vatican in Rome and looking at ancient devices and relics and UFO evidence being hidden from the public.
I know a few of our listeners will be keen to hear our views on that as well.
Yes, and I'm saying it like it's fact because that's what I do. So you don't want to miss that one, listeners. Until next time, keep watching these government committees investigating UFOs and their agendas.
And if someone starts putting pressure on you, just give in to it. Sit there. It's not going to end well if you don't.
Or don't, because of principles. Yeah. Anyway, and also keep watching the skies. Take care for now. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Aliens Explored is a Fecal Films production in association with Juicy Falls. Music by Darren Mafucci and editing by Stu Jackson. Find us on Twitter or Facebook by searching Aliens Explored, or visit us on aliensexplored.com.